Hi, I'm Andrew Listen,
I'm Andrew Hart.
and this is the Mumbly Hour. Good afternoon.
Hello.
So how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. You?
I'm good. I'm back, so I have proper equipment. I'm back at my desk. I'm happy.
Mm-hmm. I have permanently moved desks. So I moved to London this week. Moved into my new flat.
You happy with the location of the flat? You happy with stuff?
Yeah, I'm really happy with the location. Once this balcony door gets fixed, it will be like the balcony's awesome. It looks out onto a little sort of canal thing, and there's a tree line and there's a park beyond.
Fair enough. Cool.
Well, actually, I'm not the only one with big news. In fact, I think my news of moving to a brand new city, new apartment, and everything is superseded by your massive news that you have reactivated your Twitter account.
I did that on Friday, I think. Is that right? You remember when we first discussed it, I said that when you deactivate your account, you get 30 days.
Yeah.
Well, I set my calendar event, and it just told me to do it. So I signed in, and I wasn't really sure what to do, because I just looked at it, and my timeline was just a flood of stuff, and I was like, wow, this is going to take ages to go through. And I was busy at the time, because I was at work, so I just sort of shut it off. I typed the hello world thing, and then just shut it off. And
You're like, I'm a Twitter completist man. These 29 days of tweets are going to take some time to get through.
yeah, it's nuts. It's just what wasn't going to happen.
So I haven't really been checking in. Have you been tweeting that much?
No, I have tweeted two things. One, which we're going to get to later, and the hello world thing. And I've replied to a couple of people, because a couple of people were like chatting to me, and I saw a couple of things that I thought were funny, so I replied to some people. And a thing about Prince dying, because Prince died a couple of days ago. Someone had drawn his love symbol outside my flat in chalk on the ground, so I took a picture of that and tweeted that. And that's about it.
So what do you think? Do you think you're going to just continue on this sort of path of discovery and not really knowing what to do, or you?
I don't know. I'll maybe just ban it from my computer. Similar to like what I do with entertainment, I try and limit that to like my iPad that I do at night, and I'll maybe do that with Twitter as well. Like keep it on my phone, but not use it on my computer at all. I've also been using the Twitter app.
No, I haven't sold my soul yet.
It's not terrible for something. There's a couple of things that it does better, like it does polls and things that aren't in the developer API, so things that Tweetbot can't do.
Yeah, and that's kind of a shame. It's kind of a shame that you have to say, oh, well, Tweetbot doesn't have this feature, when actually the reason is because Twitter screwed them over. It doesn't allow them to have that feature.
It's not Twitter screwed them over.
Well, I mean, it did, because it welcomed them to the platform, and now it's shut down their access to the new things.
It's not shut down their access, the access to the new things.
Okay, it hasn't granted access to the new things.
Yeah. It's not screwing them over.
I think it is.
It's 4 years since they said you shouldn't write a Twitter client. They haven't expanded the API for clients, and that's kind of in line with what they said they were going to do.
Oh, well, whatever Twitter wants to do. You know what, though? I think that if Tweetbot on that day just went, all right, okay, no more Tweetbot updates. We're not going to update it for iOS 7. We're not going to release, like, the new activity update that they did, Tweetbot 4, whatever it was. If Tweetbot did that, if we're not going to bring it to the Mac, then I think Twitter will be having a harder time than they are, because a lot of the Twitter power users are using Tweetbot.
You really think that a large percentage of Twitter's active user base comes from Tweetbot? Like, there's like 400 million active users, and you think a lot of them are Tweetbot users?
I think a lot of the power users, a lot of the people that I follow are using Tweetbot. I know that's not representative.
It's a very narrow percentage. If you look at like someone like a celebrity who's got 12 million followers, if you look at the percentage of those who are using the Twitter native app or the website and aren't using Tweetbot, I think our little tiny community is not is
That's true.
We're a very, very small community in the grand scheme of it.
Anyway. So WWDC. Alright, so you have some good news.
As people may or may not know, the Worldwide Developer Conference that Apple does every June is the tickets are allocated via a lottery. So you apply for the opportunity to pay for a ticket. And
then if you get picked, they immediately take the money from your account. So you have to be serious.
You find out if you're going because you got a phone call from the bank saying that you've been charged for these tickets. And they're not cheap. I apply every year, and I've never gotten them for the past couple of years they've done it. But this year, I did get a ticket. So I'm going to San Francisco in June.
That's amazing. Congratulations.
I've never been to San Francisco before.
Yeah, that'll be so good. You'll have such a good time. It'll be an amazing experience. And you'll get to go and watch the keynote. You'll get to see an actual Apple keynote with thousands of other Apple fans, Apple fanboys.
Yeah, the closest we came to buying tickets before was in 2011, after the iPad 2 was announced, and it's one of my biggest regrets is not buying a ticket and going, because that was Steve's last keynote, and I kind of wish that we'd gone. But we're going this year, so I'll get to see Tim.
Mm-hmm.
I'll get to sit in they're doing it in the Civic, the Graham Auditorium where they did the Apple Watch announcement last year.
Yeah. The funny thing is, though, is that people are like, oh, yeah, it's because the capacity is so much higher. It's like 7,000 instead of 5,000. Thus, more people can attend. But I don't remember it being a large event, the watch event. I don't remember any of them other than WWD. I don't remember any of them being on the scale or anywhere near the scale. So I'm a bit confused by that.
They invited almost all the world's fashion press to that event.
Yeah, but you generally get a sense, because you watch the video stream, you get a sense of the size of the room. I don't remember it being that big. I'll have to watch it back, but anyway.
But WWDC is always massive. Like, that room, you can see, because the stage is huge, and you sometimes see a glimpse of the audience, and it looks like a small arena. They have an overflow room as well that they put people in for that. But
I think you should queue up very early, because you don't want to be in the overflow room. If you can, you want to be in the main room.
It'd be quite cool. See Tim and Craig Federighi up on stage.
Yeah, it will be. Maybe Eddie Q if you're so lucky.
I could see one of his groovy shirts. Maybe see him dance.
Mm.
I might throw something at Jimmy Iovine for his sexist women don't want to discover music comment. That'd be cool. So I found out about 3 hours ago. So I'm still trying to contemplate what it is that I'm going to do. Because Casey Liss of Accidental Tech Podcast fame posted an article about how expensive it is to go there.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
The hotel price is apparently the biggest stumbling block.
Yeah, and I've seen a few articles about this past week, people discussing how the hotel prices are going up and up and up, and I don't want to stress you out about this. But after you told me, I did think, he's going to have to, I think you're going to have to either just, deal with it and pay the money, or you're going to have to find some alternative, but they are very expensive.
The articles are all if you want a hotel within walking space of WWDC, of Moscone West, which is where the conference center is, it's gone from $1,000 to $2,500 for the hotel stay.
Wow.
So I read that and thought, well, I'm gonna learn how public transport works in San Francisco.
Yeah.
I don't need to be 5 blocks from Moscone West. I can learn how the trams work.
Yeah. So are you going to make a little holiday out of it, a little vacation?
Yeah.
Cool. Sounds good.
So my stepdad is going to come because it was him.
Nice.
It was actually him that got the ticket, but we're in the same developer team, so he's going to transfer the ticket ownership.
So
which you can do inside the same team.
Wait. So your stepdad, sorry, won the ticket.
He won the lottery,
and he said, "Why don't you go instead of me?"
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, you owe him beers at the very least, and then some more beers, and then some more beers. That's a very kind gesture, though.
Isn't it?
Yeah. What products do you want to see?
Well, one of the biggest things I want to see is it's one of the biggest disappointments I have with iOS is I want a big improvement to Siri or Siri.
Mm-hmm.
Siri. I'm gonna say Siri.
Siri.
Because I feel that remember when they bought the company, and not long after they bought the company, Steve Jobs was at the D conference with Walt Mossberg and Kara Swisher, and he was interviewed saying, "Oh, you've bought this speech to text company," and he was like, "What they're doing isn't so much about speech to text and speech recognition. It's AI." And he really emphasized the fact that they're making grounds and pushing forward in that kind of thing.
Last year at our conference, we had a small search company called Siri.
Yeah.
And
well, I don't know if I would describe Siri as a search company.
okay, but it's a search-related company, and I'd like you to describe
I would
it.
not. I would.
You now own them, right?
Yeah, we bought them.
So what?
Why?
And there was a lot of speculation. Well, this company's kind of in the search area. And
No,
Apple
they're not
hasn't.
in the search area.
What are they in? How would you describe it?
They're in the AI area. Yeah.
So you bought them for their engineers and their patents and their knowledge about AI more broadly.
We like what they do a lot.
And because of when he died, which was not long after that interview, it was a couple of months afterwards. I feel like that's one of the only promises that he started that hasn't been followed through on, because I feel like they had to get the technology out to get a lot of data in, and that's what they did with Siri. It was like, here's a bunch of stuff that it can do now, and in the future it's going to get way better. And I thought that from what you could hear from that interview, his vision of where that product was going to go is not what has happened. And if you look at competitive products like the Amazon Echo or Google Now to an extent, but not so much, but like if you look at other companies and other competitors who are going in that sort of smart, intelligent assistant sort of point of view, I think that Siri had the potential to lead forward in that because of where they started, but I think that it hasn't happened, and I think that that's one thing that I really want to see improve.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think the small issue is that the text-to-speech could be improved. If ever I say my parents' hometown into Siri, it doesn't recognize it, whereas it does with Google Now every time. But the much, much bigger issue is that the results just aren't very good. They aren't very informed. And I saw a comment on Reddit earlier that I made a note of, which said, I want Siri to not pull up an internet search with every question I ask her. And that is totally how I feel. It's super frustrating, especially when you're trying to like show someone like, look how good this is. And you ask a question and it's like, here's what I found on the web. And there's a list of Bing results where it's basically like, all right, go and find the information yourself. Here's some results. You go and research that yourself and find the answer yourself. Whereas in now what I actually do is I use the Google app way more than I use Siri, and I open it and I go, how old is this person, or how far is it between these places, or what year was this film released? And Google will read me out the answer, and it will display it in a way that I can see it, and then it'll show me the results under it. And I think Siri is just not really on a level with that. Like, Siri just kind of stood still, and Google is, non-surprisingly, doing quite well at it. And like you say, the Amazon Echo, I hear really good things about it, and people who use an Amazon Echo seem to think that the Echo is better than Google's service. And so I don't care what Apple says about how great Siri is. Siri just isn't very good, and is one of the things that Android is better than iOS at, is asking questions to your phone. And the other day, I tried Hey Siri from halfway across the room, and it just failed about 3 times, and I just give up on it. And I was in bed at the time, so I was like, it doesn't matter. I think I was asking what the time was, but I was just like, you know what, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But I've heard about Amazon Echo that you can be a reasonable distance. Like, you can be maybe in another room with it open, or you can be across the room, and you can say things without shouting, and it will pick it up and it will give you a good response to it. I think Siri has a long way to go to improve, but it also is with the App Store results, which is that Siri being a service, it doesn't need a major iOS update or WWDC to happen for them to say, we're going to make it better. They can just internally decide, we're going to start making it better, and you will see those improvements. But the worrying thing is that we are not seeing those improvements. What they could do is they could release a Siri API, and then they could let apps hook into it. But it still doesn't really solve the issue of general searches. It would be great if you could say, Siri, get an Uber to pick me up, and it would do it. But it wouldn't. They also have some way to go on the stuff that they handle themselves.
Yes, I don't feel so strongly about searches, but I think that the innovations of what it can do and what it's capable of and the tasks that it can solve, I think, could be massively improved. If you look at, I don't think Google Now is improving as much as it was when it first came out. It seems like the team that they've got is small. It isn't doing as much as it used to, and I think that products like the Amazon Echo and other smaller things that people are working in robotics and stuff, and even Cortana. They look at when Microsoft brought out Cortana, the way that they figured out what it should be able to do is by having an assistant for, I think it was the assistant for one of the CEOs. I can't remember who it was, but they had an assistant follow somebody and note down everything that was asked. So every task that person was asked to complete during the day was noted down, and that was implemented as a feature in Cortana, so that it could be an intelligent assistant and it could do things for you that you wanted. And things like Daniel Jalkut, who's an ex Apple engineer who now runs Red Sweater Software, he was driving and he noticed that he was running low on fuel, and there was a fuel place in 16 miles, and the next one was 110 miles or something. And he said, Siri, remind me in 15 miles to go get gas. And because it doesn't know direction, it doesn't know distance-related reminders, it wasn't able to do that. So he just looked in his reminders and it went, in 15 miles, remind me to get gas. So it just noted down that text. But I use Siri all the time for things like timers and calendar events and like remind me to do X or set an alarm for Y, and it is pretty good at that. Or add such and such to my calendar, add this appointment, and it is alright at that. But I think it's so limited in its range of functionality that I think that in the time since, so it's coming up in 5 years since it came out.
Yeah.
It'll be 5 years in September, and I think that the potential that they had is that in 5 years to move that forward. Like if you look at how iOS has moved forward in 5 years since that came out, since the iPhone 4S came out, it has moved forward leaps and bounds with like things that they've introduced, and I think that it's one of the most disappointing. Well, it's not disappointing, but it's one of the most points of wasted potential I think that I see in the platform.
Yeah, absolutely. 5 years is a long time in the tech industry. And when things first come out, like when Siri first come out, you make provisions for new products and you say, okay, so it doesn't have this thing nailed or it doesn't do all of this advanced stuff, but it's new, you've got to give it time. But 5 years down the road is, okay, this should not be having these introductory sort of problems now. It should be good at all of these things.
You shouldn't have a problem. You shouldn't have a product that is being introduced today and on day one is better than your 5-year-old technology. They shouldn't. Apple's not a company that should be getting leapfrogged like that.
Yeah. The examples you mentioned. So Amazon Echo, I didn't actually mention, does have an API, and I think that's why people like it so much, is that all of these different apps can hook into it. I'm not entirely sure how you add things to it. Like, how do you add your Spotify account to it? How do you say that you want Spotify on there? I'm not sure how that works, but anyway, the examples you mentioned of setting a timer or setting an alarm, or what else did you mention? Reminders. Those are integrations with specific apps on the iPhone. And imagine if you could have that integration with all of the apps on the iPhone that wanted to support it. You could like, that would be really powering it up with not so much effort from Apple. It's not like Apple has to implement all those things. They just need to provide an API for it, get that set up, and then it's sort of like infinite potential past then.
Well, there would be a difficulty with the syntax because you'd have to have people competing for the same language. So you would have, like, because there's not just one calendar app.
Yeah.
There's like 9. So you'd have to figure out which one you want to be able to listen for certain keywords and be able to pick up certain keywords and direct it. And that probably put the impetus on the user to have to decide, because I've got multiple clients for multiple things. Like I've got like 19 podcast clients because I wrote a podcast app last year. So if I were to say play an episode of 99% Invisible or something, it would have to know which application I wanted it to play that from. And I think that it's not just straightforward like open an API and that'll be fine and it'll be all right. They do have to have a little bit of policy to police that.
Yeah, I mean they could say they could have it so you say ask Spotify to do a thing, but I mean, like I think that's what you were referring to when you said it puts impetus on the user. Is that what you meant by that?
They could say like get me a car or order me, like, because you'd have to the language would have to be policed slightly so that people couldn't override what other apps use. So because the reason the integration is so stripped down at the moment is that you have what's it called, integration like with Shazam and stuff like that, where keywords can call up that application is due to the integration that they've got. But you can do it with tweets and stuff as well, and it takes companies like OmniFocus have got Siri integration in the sense that they game reminders. So I have a reminder list, like a reminder list called Inbox, and if I say add such and such and such to, like, say add clear out email to my inbox, that'll go into my inbox and reminders, and OmniFocus will pick up everything that's added into inbox and reminders and add it to OmniFocus. So technically, by saying that, I can add things to OmniFocus, and that's done because I choose which reminder list. So I could have a reminder list called OmniFocus and say add this to OmniFocus, and it'll add it into that and it'll pull through. But I do think that it could be extended with an API, but I don't think it's as simple as just opening it up and letting people do what they want. Similar to how extensions was policed, I think that it would need to be semi-granular with what they allow people to do.
Right, and what do you think about? I would wonder how. I haven't looked into it, but I would wonder how Amazon handled that, because they must have the same problem, albeit people probably only install quote unquote the things that they want specifically for that. Whereas on the iPhone, you might have 3 calendar apps that you have used at some point, but you don't use all of them all of the time.
Yeah, you have one that's like a primary one, and
Yeah.
but they don't allow you to choose default apps at all at the moment. So I think that would have to come first. So they don't allow you to change the default mail app from Mail to, like, say, what's the one you use, Airmail, or Outlook. I think that they would, in order to allow Siri to choose which application to pick certain keywords from, because, like, there's no reason why you couldn't have, because there's 1.2 million apps in the App Store, or 1.5 million apps in the App Store. There's no reason why they couldn't have the same keyword be used for 2 different applications, because some people might not have both of those applications. But if you'd have to be able to choose which default you want to have, and iOS doesn't have a history of allowing users to pick defaults.
Yeah.
But I do think that that's something they need to do. And I think that would help the platform move forward. What about you? What do you want to see?
So I have some developer experience with iCloud Drive, and with iCloud Drive, you can save things either from an application level. You can have people save things either in a public store, which means that everybody gets access to it, or you can save it in a private store, which means it's just for them. In the private store, it comes off their iCloud space. In the public store, it comes off the apps. Therefore, even if you encrypt the stuff in the public store, you can't just allow everybody to save the stuff there that they want to share with people as like a permanent repository, because very soon you're going to start hitting limits on that. So what I want to see, and this ends up being an issue with Apple's homegrown apps as well, and what I want to see is private sharing added as functionality to iCloud Drive, which means that if I want... So I have some issues with using my iPad right now. So for example, I currently save my spreadsheet in Numbers, and I keep that in Dropbox so that I can share that with my accountant. But on the iPad, I can't easily. I can export it from Dropbox into Numbers, and then when I'm done, I guess I can probably get it back to Dropbox somehow. But it's not an easy process. What I would like to do is just save it in the Numbers iCloud Drive and just share that file with my accountant. To his account. But because there's no private sharing, there's no way for me to do that. It's either mine or it's everybody's, and obviously there isn't an option in Numbers to share with everybody. But that's all, as developers, that's all developers are able to do. And so I think a lot of avenues are kind of cut off by this. Another example is Ulysses. So Ulysses is a note-taking app that I use, and I would love to be able to share my Ulysses docs with you, and they're only markdown documents, but I would love to be able to share them with you, because it's where I make a lot of the notes about the podcast and things, the plans for the future and stuff like that. And so I store those in Dropbox on the Mac, but again, until Ulysses on iOS adds Dropbox support, then they're not able to show me the Dropbox things, and I'm not going to be able to edit the Dropbox things on the iOS device. And a solution, I think, to this would be either they integrate with Dropbox and everybody else integrates with Dropbox, or how about we have the homegrown solution and we use iCloud Drive, which in my experience has been great at everything that it does right now. Like, this has come so far, and it is a really good point, but desperately needs this feature of allowing people to do this private sharing. I think it's the next step, and I really hope we see it, because, if we don't, then I'm going to just be thinking it's going to be another year until we see this. So that's my real number one request.
I think that'd be useful. I started using iCloud Drive a lot more, and the biggest thing that I miss about it is something like that, like containers that I would be able to pull files from and share with certain people, because iWork, the web versions of iWork, almost get you there, but it's just not enough. Because we can work on, we could do, because we use a Google Doc, but we could use Pages instead.
Yeah,
but we don't, because that doesn't work in iOS. But no, I agree. I think that's a good idea. What else? What else do you want to see? I think that we should get t-shirts printed so I can represent the podcast when I'm there.
Yeah, I think this is a good idea.
And get listeners like my stepdad to come and be like, "Oh, hey, you do that podcast?" I'm like, "Yeah, nobody else will, 'cause nobody else listens."
Yeah, I'm thinking about the design of it, and I'm starting to fret now, because I'm thinking, well, I'm gonna have to do the design of this thing, and I really am not a fan of t-shirts which are like the background color that we use. Like, if it's just slightly off white, I don't like those t-shirt colors, because it looks.
I will not wear it if it's the color, if it's that color.
So I'm gonna have to work on something. I'm gonna have to think about this.
I would wear a white t-shirt or a black t-shirt. You could do a black t-shirt with an orange logo.
Ooh, I don't know. That might be a little bit contrasting, but we could do white. I could go with white for the background.
Black on orange isn't that bad. I have a Charmander t-shirt which is orange and it's black.
Okay.
I'm gonna find it. I wore it yesterday because I'm 25 and I wear Pokemon t-shirts.
We have a very bold shade of orange, though. I haven't seen your Charmander t-shirt.
Have you seen a Charmander? Right. Hold on a second. I'm gonna find it. I have sent you a photo. It's on its way to you. It may interrupt the call because it's gonna have to use network bandwidth together.
Oh yeah, yeah. That t-shirt looks like a good design. I'm just thinking. I don't know.
It's the evolutions of Charmander.
I'm just thinking about if we have just this orange, this bright orange text on a black background. I'll try it and we'll see what it looks like. But
do both. We can not kickstart. We can use, what's that t-shirt thing? Teespring, and nobody will buy it. My flatmate said he would buy one.
Oh, I wouldn't buy one. I don't wear novelty t-shirts.
Not a novelty t-shirt.
Well, it's a t-shirt which isn't like designed for fashion.
Oh, is it not fashion conscious enough? Are you a fashionista?
That's right.
Weren't you wearing like a Next hoodie when I met you? Right.
No. I was wearing a Jack Jones hoodie and a River Island jumper.
Oh, I do apologize for your River Island fashion jumper.
My dad goes out. You know those free Apple Store shirts that they give out on the first day of a store opening. There was 2 stores opened in Newcastle. My dad got 2 of these t-shirts, one at each opening, and he wears these t-shirts all the time. He wears them in public, just like this thing on the front, Apple Store logo with the name of the store. It's just really, really embarrassing.
I don't really care about what people wear. I don't find people's clothing embarrassing. It doesn't really bother me.
Okay.
I don't know why I would find it embarrassing either.
I might make an exception for our podcast, but I don't know. I just don't like that sort of thing. It's never really appealed to me.
Fair enough. If I see any podcast people at WWDC, I'm going to go up and talk to them and say hello. I'm going to be that super awkward guy that walks up to John Syracuse and goes, hello, best friend, hello, I listen to you all the time. Hi.
And then you have to name each podcast out, just so he knows that it's not just ATP. You're like, oh, I also listen to you on this show, and this show, and this show.
I listen to all the great shows. I will.
What did you mean at that bit, 37 minutes into episode 28 of The Incomparable, when you sit in like, just like, I don't know.
Oh, man. I can't even see. The thing is, like, if he were to ever listen to our Star Wars podcast, the first episode that we did, which people shouldn't listen to because it's awful.
Yeah.
I stole a lot of commentary from him. Well, I paraphrased a lot of commentary from him.
Imagine this friendship could happen, right? Let's just imagine this. So you meet John Syracuse, and somehow you manage to get through the whole thing, and he ends up thinking, oh, this is an interesting person. You happen to mention you have your own podcast. You're not one of these randoms. You're like an actual person with responsibilities, and you're like, you're a cool person. You have your own podcast. And you ask, so what's it called? You're like, oh, Mumbly Hour. And he goes and he looks at Mumbly Hour later on. And he's like, oh, they did a Star Wars episode. I'll listen to that one. And so he listens to the Star Wars episode, and then he goes, this is terrible. I'm never I'm just forgetting about that guy. I never want to see him again. Really, I thought he was a person with hopes and dreams in life, and I don't think he's going to reach them.
I think that's an incredibly judgmental response to have, but yeah, I think that one thing I'd like to see.
I say this because I don't know if everybody has this, but I am going to admit to it, and I'm not really ashamed of it. Where CGP Grey mentioned on Hello Internet the Greenwich Foot Tunnel, which I frequent quite often, and he's mentioned Starbucks and everything before as well, and so I missed the next 5 minutes of what they were saying because I was thinking, what if I bumped into him? Like, what if I was there and I was just in the Starbucks? I was like, oh, hi, I listened to your show, and I'm like, yeah, I have a podcast too, and it's called this, and like we could like hit it off, and then he might listen to the podcast and go, actually, this isn't very good. And I went through this entire thought stream of what would happen if I met CGP Grey, and this whole scenario happened. Do you ever do that, or is it just me?
I think that you're a special kind of human being.
Okay. I don't. It's a bit embarrassing, but I don't mind admitting that I have these little thoughts.
So, I think the one, if I met Marco Arman, I would probably introduce myself to him because I have half my podcasting equipment directly from him.
Yeah, that would make a lot of sense.
So, like, when I bought a set of headphones from him, which I'm wearing at the moment, he also sent me an audio interface, a couple of microphones, one of which you got for a while, and another set of headphones, and I sent a picture. I took a picture of it when I got them out, and it said, it looks like he's wanting me to start a podcast. And a month later, we did start a podcast.
Yeah.
So
That's something relatable. That's something that you could say, oh, I'm the guy who did this, and you'd be like, oh, yeah, I remember that.
Because there was only a handful of people who must have done that too. And I must probably be the only one from Scotland that he sent them to.
Yeah, exactly. You could say, oh, I'm the guy from Scotland who did the thing. Yeah,
He absorbed the cost of the postage, which I think was very nice, because I can't imagine postage to here would have been cheap.
He not only absorbed the cost of the postage, but did you pay for one thing from him?
Yeah, it was like, I want a set of headphones.
Right.
And he went, how much do you want to pay for them? And I was like, this much. He went, here's my PayPal account. There you go.
And then he said, what else do you want? And then he just sent a bunch of stuff. It's like, here's a bunch of other freebies. And also I'm paying for the postage. It's very reasonable.
It was a super generous thing to do. Anyway, so I think that I may talk more about WWDC as it gets closer, and I think of things that I have to do before I get there. But
mostly it'll just be squeak.
Yeah, it's just gonna be me. Oh fuck, that's that thing you sent me a text message of.
Yeah.
Jesus. That's exactly the sound I thought when I read it too, and I was like, nah. Anyway, mostly it'll just be excitement. So do you want to wrap up this episode?
Yep.
So, what are your thoughts? What do you think Apple should introduce at WWDC? What do you think about our potential improvements for Siri and for iCloud Drive? I don't know, because I really just thought of them on the top of my head.
All right, so we got some feedback on the previous episode because it was a debate, so it made a lot of sense. So thanks to people who fed back on that. We want to hear what you think every week, and I know that when I listen to podcasts, an admission is that I'm sure a lot of the podcasts, I've never actually contacted the host and said, hey, I listened to your show. And so often people, I will be like, oh yeah, I mentioned that on my podcast, and they'll be like, yeah, I know, I listened to it. And I just have no idea. I presume people don't. So
yeah, give feedback because it's cool because it means that we know that you're listening and we get to engage a little bit more. And I normally reply directly to people, and then because that's why we don't talk about feedback very often, because if people talk to me about it, I just have a conversation with them. I'm like, oh, tell me more of your thoughts. But yeah, give feedback on Twitter or an email or just bug me.
If you want to review us on iTunes, it really helps the discoverability of the show. So you can do that over iTunes, and you can follow us on Twitter, and you can email us. And if you want to do any of those things, all of the links are at mumblyhour.com. Thanks for listening, and have a great day.
Have a good week, and we'll see you next week. Thank you very much.